The sun was setting over Lackland Air Force Base when two security guards blocked the entrance to the graduation hall. The woman in front of them wore a torn flight jacket that reeked of exhaust fumes and rain. Her hands, scarred and trembling, held up a crumpled invitation with her daughter's name on it. One guard wrinkled his nose. The other reached for his radio. But before anyone could say another word, the homeless woman's sleeve lifted just enough to reveal something that would change everything. A set of coordinates marking the most daring rescue in Afghanistan, a faded pair of pilot wings, and a call sign that every Air Force aviator in that building had heard whispered like a legend: Valkyrie. Colonel Sarah Mitchell hadn't slept in a bed for 7 years, but today she was going to watch her daughter earn the wings she'd once worn with pride. The wings she'd lost the day she decided a broken pilot couldn't be a mother. If you're watching this story from anywhere in the world, we'd love to know where you're joining us from. Drop a comment below telling us your city or country. And if stories like this one about courage, sacrifice, and second chances speak to you, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us share more incredible true stories that honor the forgotten heroes among us. Now, let's continue. Sarah Mitchell hadn't slept in a bed for 7 years. She'd slept under highway overpasses, in doorways, on park benches until the police moved her along. Her home was a concrete alcove beneath Interstate 35, where the traffic noise never stopped and the cold seeped through her bones every night. She carried everything she owned in a faded military backpack. A framed photo of Emma at age 11, grinning with gap teeth in her soccer uniform. A Silver Star medal wrapped in cloth that she never showed anyone. And a broken watch that had belonged to Captain David Chen, her wingman who died in the C-130 crash while she was pulling survivors from the wreckage. Sarah hadn't always been invisible. Once she was Colonel Sarah Mitchell, call sign Valkyrie, United States Air Force, 183 combat missions over Iraq and Afghanistan, specialist in combat search and rescue operations. She'd flown C-130s through enemy fire to extract wounded soldiers, navigated through sandstorms that grounded every other aircraft, and earned a reputation that made even veteran pilots go quiet when her name came up. But then came Kandahar, the mission that saved 12 lives and destroyed hers. The PTSD came slowly, then all at once. Nightmares that made her wake up screaming. Flashbacks triggered by the sound of airplanes overhead. The VA gave her pills and appointments that never led anywhere. Bureaucracy, paperwork, wait times that stretched into months. She tried to hold on, tried to be a mother to Emma, tried to work as a flight instructor, tried to function, but the guilt was crushing. David Chen's last words, the faces of the men she'd pulled from fire, the sound of metal tearing and men screaming. So 7 years ago, Sarah made a decision. She walked away, told herself Emma would be better off without a broken mother, told herself it was protection. It wasn't. It was surrender. She lived quietly after that, never caused trouble, never stole. She'd help other homeless veterans find shelters or share food when she had any. She kept her head down and tried not to think about what she used to be. But 2 months ago, something changed. She found a crumpled flyer tucked into her backpack, left there by another veteran who thought she might care. An Air Force pilot graduation ceremony, Class 2024B. And there, in small print near the bottom, a list of graduating officers. Second Lieutenant Emma Sarah Mitchell, her daughter, her baby girl. The child she hadn't seen in 7 years was about to become what Sarah once was, a pilot. Sarah walked for 3 days to get to San Antonio, 52 miles on foot, sleeping in bus stops, drinking from public fountains. Her feet bled through her boots. Her ribs ached, but she kept moving. She wasn't going to miss this. She didn't plan to make contact, didn't plan to embarrass Emma. She just wanted to see her one time. just to know her daughter had made it. When she arrived at the base, the sun was still high. Families poured through the gates in neat civilian clothes and dress uniforms. Mothers clutched flowers. Fathers wore Air Force ball caps from their own service days. Sarah stood at the edge of the parking lot, trying to gather courage to walk through those gates. Her reflection stared back at her in a car window. Sunken cheeks, matted hair, a face that looked 20 years older than her 42 years. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman the world had forgotten. She approached the entrance just as the ceremony was about to begin. 2 guards stood at the security checkpoint. Airman Tyler Grant, 26, fresh-faced and professional. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb, 34, a little older, more experienced. They saw Sarah coming and exchanged a glance. Tyler stepped forward first. "Ma'am, do you have identification?" Sarah reached into her jacket and pulled out the invitation. It was wrinkled, water-stained, torn at one corner. Tyler took it, studied it, frowned. "This says guest of Second Lieutenant Emma Mitchell. Are you family?" "I'm her mother." Marcus stepped closer now, arms crossed. "You have any ID to confirm that?" Sarah hesitated. Her driver's license had expired 5 years ago. She had nothing but the photo in her backpack and a name that no longer meant anything to anyone. "I don't, but I just want to sit in the back. I won't cause any trouble." Tyler looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at the line of families forming behind Sarah. Protocol said no ID, no entry. But something in the way the woman stood, something in her eyes, made Tyler pause. "Wait here," Tyler said, stepping aside to radio command. What Tyler didn't know was that at that exact moment inside the auditorium, General Patricia Morrison was reviewing the ceremony roster and preparing to deliver a speech about legacy, sacrifice, and what it meant to earn pilot wings. And the only person standing outside who truly understood those words was a homeless veteran everyone had already written off. Tyler came back a minute later. "All right, you can go in, but you'll need to sit in the back, and ma'am, we'll need you to leave your belongings with security." Sarah nodded. She handed over her backpack. Marcus took it, unzipped it briefly, saw the framed photo, the medal. He zipped it back up without a word and handed Sarah a claim ticket. Tyler opened the gate. "Thank you," Sarah said quietly. She walked through. The auditorium loomed ahead, white and gleaming in the late afternoon sun. She could hear voices inside, the shuffling of chairs, the distant sound of a brass band warming up. Her heart hammered. She hadn't been on an Air Force base in over a decade. It felt like stepping into a past life. Inside, the auditorium was packed. Rows and rows of families. At the front, a stage draped in Air Force blue and silver. Behind it, the American flag and the Air Force emblem. Sarah slipped into the last row, into a shadowed corner near the exit. A few people turned to look. A woman in a sundress wrinkled her nose and whispered to her husband. A man in a suit shifted his chair away slightly. Sarah kept her eyes forward. The ceremony began. The brass band played the national anthem. Everyone rose. Sarah stood slowly, her hand over her heart, her lips moving silently to words she hadn't spoken aloud in years. Then General Morrison took the podium. She was 58, with sharp eyes and silver hair pulled into a tight bun. She'd spent 34 years in the Air Force and commanded more respect than most generals twice her rank. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady and clear, "today we honor the men and women who have earned the right to wear these wings. They are not a gift. They are not inherited. They are earned through discipline, through fear overcome, through the refusal to quit when everything tells you to stop." Sarah listened, her hands clenched in her lap. She knew those words. She'd lived them. The roll call began. One by one, graduates were called to the stage. Each received their silver pilot wings from General Morrison. Each shook her hand. And then the tradition. The question she asked every single graduate, is there a pilot present who would like to pin these wings? Usually it was a parent, a mentor, someone who'd walked the path before. Sarah watched as proud parents in dress uniforms stepped forward, as veteran pilots with gray hair and chests full of ribbons came to honor the young aviators they'd trained, and then the name was called. Second Lieutenant Emma Sarah Mitchell. Sarah sat up straight, her breath caught, and there she was. Emma, 25 years old, taller than Sarah remembered, her dark hair pulled back in regulation style, her uniform crisp and perfect, her face, Sarah's face, her father's eyes, set with determination and pride. Emma walked to the stage with her back straight and her eyes forward. General Morrison handed her the silver wings, small, gleaming, weighing almost nothing but meaning everything. Is there a pilot present who would like to pin these wings? The auditorium went quiet. Emma scanned the crowd. Her father had died in a car accident when she was 3. No uncles, no grandparents, just empty seats where family should have been. And then, from the back of the room, in the shadows where no one had been paying attention, a scarred hand rose slowly into the air. Sarah didn't mean to do it. It was instinct, a mother's reflex. But the moment her hand went up, the moment her sleeve slid back and revealed the tattoo on her forearm, coordinates, pilot wings, the call sign etched in faded ink, everything stopped. Emma's eyes found her, and for a moment the young pilot's face went completely blank. Then her mouth opened, her eyes filled, and she said, loud enough for the front rows to hear, "General, my mother is here." General Morrison looked confused. She glanced at her roster. Emma's mother wasn't listed. She looked out into the crowd, following Emma's gaze to the back of the room. And then she saw her, a homeless woman in torn clothing, standing in the shadows, her hand still raised. General Morrison's face went white. Her hand flew to her mouth. She took a step back, and for a moment it looked like she might collapse. "Valkyrie," she whispered. Sarah nodded once. "Ma'am?" The name spread through the auditorium like wildfire. Valkyrie, the Valkyrie of Kandahar, the legend, the pilot who wasn't supposed to exist anymore. General Morrison straightened, and then, in front of 300 people, she did something no one expected. She saluted, a full, formal military salute to a woman in rags. "Colonel Mitchell," she said, her voice shaking. "We didn't know. We didn't know." Sarah returned the salute slowly, her hand trembling. "Permission to approach, General." "Granted." Sarah walked down the aisle. Every eye followed her. Some families leaned away. Others stared in shock. But the pilots, the instructors, the veteran aviators in the crowd, they all stood. One by one, they rose to their feet. Emma jumped off the stage and ran. She didn't walk. She sprinted down the aisle and crashed into her mother with 7 years of grief packed into that embrace. Mom, I thought you were dead. I thought I'd lost you." Sarah held her, her arms thin and weak wrapped around her daughter. "I'm sorry," Sarah whispered. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I thought you'd be better without me." "I was never better without you." Behind them, General Morrison was wiping her eyes, and then from somewhere in the crowd, someone started clapping. Then another, then another. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was on its feet. Applause thundered through the hall. But for Sarah and Emma, there was no sound. Just the two of them. Just a mother and daughter who had found each other again. General Morrison invited Sarah onto the stage. Sarah tried to refuse, but Emma took her hand and pulled her forward. They climbed the steps together. The general handed Sarah the silver wings. "The honor is yours, Colonel." Sarah looked down at the wings in her palm. She looked at Emma, standing tall in her dress blues, and then, with hands that had once flown rescue missions through enemy fire, she carefully pinned the wings over Emma's heart. "I wasn't there for a lot of things," Sarah said, her voice barely audible, "but I'm so proud of who you became." Emma's voice broke. "You were always there, Mom. You taught me what it means to fly before I ever sat in a cockpit." After the ceremony, General Morrison pulled Sarah aside. "Colonel Mitchell, how long have you been on the streets?" 7 years, ma'am. "And the VA?" "They tried. I fell through the cracks." The general's jaw tightened. "That ends today. I'm personally assigning a case manager, housing, medical, full psychological support. You're going to get everything you were owed." "I don't need charity, General." "It's not charity. It's a debt, and it's long overdue." That night, Emma brought Sarah to her small apartment, off base. It wasn't much. 1 bedroom, a couch, a tiny kitchen, but it was warm and clean. Sarah stood in the doorway, hesitant. "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden. You're my mom, and you're staying here." End of discussion. They sat on the couch. Emma made tea. Sarah held the mug in both hands, letting the warmth sink in. They talked for hours, about David Chen, about the nightmares, about the years Emma spent wondering if her mother was alive, about the guilt that had eaten Sarah alive. "I thought I was protecting you," Sarah said. "I thought if I left, you wouldn't have to see me broken." "I would have rather seen you broken than not at all." Sarah nodded slowly. "I know that now." 2 weeks later, Sarah moved into temporary veteran housing on base. She started therapy 3 times a week. The nightmares didn't stop, but they got quieter. She took a consulting position. Twice a week, she'd sit with pilot candidates and talk, not about glory, but about the cost, about PTSD, about what happens when you can't leave the war behind. The young pilots listened, and they respected her. Emma visited every weekend. They'd walk along the flight line, watch the planes take off. They didn't always talk. Sometimes silence was enough. 6 months later, Sarah stood in front of a group of Air Force cadets. She wore civilian clothes, but on her forearm the tattoo was visible. A reminder. "Most of you know who I am," she began. "Some of you know the stories, but I'm not here to talk about missions. I'm here to talk about what happens after." A young cadet raised her hand. "Colonel, how do you come back from that?" Sarah smiled faintly. "You don't come back alone. You find one person, one reason. For me, it was my daughter. Find yours and hold on." That night, Sarah sat with Emma on the base, watching the sunset. "You doing okay, Mom?" Sarah nodded. "Yeah, I think I am." "Good, because I need you around." "I know." They sat in silence. Mother and daughter, pilot and pilot. 2 women who had walked through fire and found their way back. Sarah Mitchell never made headlines, never gave interviews, never sought recognition. She still carried the guilt, still had nightmares. But she also carried something new, hope, purpose, a reason to keep going. And sometimes, late at night, when the memories came, she'd open her eyes and remember where she was. Not under a bridge, not alone, but in a room with a bed, with a daughter who loved her, with a second chance she never thought she'd get. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that second chances are possible, that heroes can be found in the most unexpected places, please subscribe to our channel. And right now on your screen, you'll see another incredible story waiting for you. Click it, watch it, and remember, every person you pass on the street has a story. Some of them might just be legendary. Thank you for watching.